are still found within the systems of our government. What is wrong? He said the very same thing which he has said. He has used the term, the problem is with our hearts. Justice Resident Zigamanda saying the problem has got to do with the integrity of the individuals. That's the very same thing. If we do not adopt a mind of integrity, nothing can change. So I just wanted to say, to corroborate to what Mr. Zonzi said. I want to get to Mr. Edward Jack. Do you think, as a procurement specialist, when matters of procurement are not done in order, Mr. Zonzi has decried the issue of gifts. Timamba za 10% in procurement. If you're not marketing, procurement will be 10%. What happens? Don't you give the green light to say, here we are, you can abuse us, you can influence us, we are willing? What really happens? Because for corruption to happen, there has to be a giver and a receiver. It's a two-way traffic. What really happens? Because we cannot just sit here, discuss the evils of political influence without also discussing the willingness of those within the industry of procurement. Mr. Jacob.
Thank you very much. I will polarize my response to political influence as well. The issue of gifts seems to be an odd norm in business. It's been practiced by business people for quite a long time. And in most cases, it is viewed as a business practice that is acceptable. However, it is the same that has actually culminated into decision distortion in our of contracts or processing of procurement transactions, particularly this assessment of bidders to identify one who should be awarded a contract. In the procurement profession, gifts are recognized as a source of corruption, and as such, the instruments that are there, like the procurement laws, the ethical standards, ethical codes, all those actually say something about gifts, and the whole range of ways and means of regulating them so that they do not influence decision making. For example, in the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Act, gifts are acceptable under the law, but there is a process of vetting them so that they are actually checked whether they have influence enough to actually move the decision makers into swaying them in the direction of the giver.
Sorry, Mr. Chek, I'll interject. In what form or fashion will these gifts come? Just in a matter of seconds.
Okay. One of them is such a thing.
Okay.
A diary.
Are you sure?
A diary is a gift. A pen is a gift. Okay? So we cannot entirely declare declare here that all gifts are evil. No, there are others that are basically about, people trying to make their business known.
Yes.
But there are gifts that actually move the decision-making process into the direction of the giver.
All right.
Those are the ones that are not acceptable.
All right.
And that's why I refer to various instruments, laws, ethical codes. They do identify them, and there are ways of weighing them so that if they are seen to be, good enough to sway the mind of the decision maker, they are prohibited. And the acceptance of the same is tantamount to breaking the law or breaking the ethical standards. Therefore, the person may be subjected to some, disciplinary action.
All right, it seems you have touched a hot metal, and I can see Mr. Oditson's itching to come in with some comment. I'll give you 30 seconds, Mr. Oditsons, please. We need to keep time.
I used to say to my traffic officers, I am driving to Mchinji, driving a 10-tonner, it's empty. I am stopped at Namitete roadblock. I greet the police officers. They check. The truck is empty. As I leave, I give them 200 kwacha for Fanta. I go to Mchinji. The following day, I'm coming back from Mchinji with a truck loaded. Do they check my truck? Flip 200 kwacha, flip 200 kwacha, pass. My whole load of jamba gets into the city. I said I have a problem with the issue of gift in the law. I'll just give you an example of Singapore. In Singapore, if you are a public officer, and you are found with a pen on your table, written sunbed, or a calendar on the wall, written sunbed, you have to produce a receipt that you bought this pen. You were not given. If you were given, why? What was the intention of sunbed giving you this? A minister in Singapore committed suicide after having bought a house at a lower price than the market price of houses in that particular area. A situation where you buy a house in area 47 at the price of houses in area 15. The only alternative he was given, which he saw was right, was to commit suicide. That's how zero tolerant Singapore is. No wonder it is where it is. And we were at the same place in 1963, economically.
Thank you very much. I think Mr. Cheke and Mr. Tonzi are speaking one language, only that they chose to use different terms. In business, we call that business culture. The culture of doing business in Japan is not the very same culture of doing business in England. If I give someone a laptop, let's say in Japan, that is a gift. They don't care. That's the very same thing which is being discussed here. So it's the business culture that we need to change or check or do something about. Let's continue. I want to get to Honorable Lipipa before I engage the audience. Honorable Lipipa, Member of Parliament, and Blantyre City South. Honorable Lipipa, Blantyre City South. I want to get to the issue of what we call the well-wisher syndrome. We all know this. I discussed this with Justice Resident Muzigamanda at that time to say A political party is very poor when it is out of power. All of a sudden, when it gets into power, you see a fleet of vehicles. Very easy for them to procure party materials. Where do they get this from? When one takes the trouble to question them, where have you secured the funds to make this investment into your political party? They'll tell you, we got it from well-wishers, without necessarily telling you who these well-wishers are. Tell us what happened. Who are these well-wishers that you failed to tell us, Mr. Levy? Honorable Levy, I'm sorry.
I think earlier mentioned about those investors, those well-wishers.
What did investment, eh?
Yes, it is actually an investment. You know, there were some things that were happening in the 1960s that were actually very good, only that we were practicing them wrongly. For example, I'm a member of DVP. We, according to our constitution, are supposed to pay subscription in order for the party to have its own financing. We have not done that. Where do you think the money is going to come from? The money will come from the well-wishers. So I'm one of the advocates who is saying every political party must start the card system. We must be paying, but this time we must not force a member to pay. We're in a democratic society. If I say I'm a member of DPP, we have to put categories, whether you're a gold member, a platinum member, or a bronze member. But this also has got corrupt implications on a future date. If I'm paying a membership of 1 million, for example, per annum, and someone is paying a membership of 10,000 per annum, I don't expect that when we get into government, if there is a business somewhere, then we are going to be considered the same. Do you understand what I'm saying? The reason, if today, if you go and ask 99.9% of politicians why they are in politics, they are not going to tell you that they want to help their people. It is their pocket first that they are thinking. We want to make sure that we are rich, we enrich ourselves.
Does that include yourself?
Well, that one you will have to judge. and today I can say no, but what happens when I become president of this country is what will make people say, well, is he acting in the best interest of Malawians, or is he acting to enrich himself? So when I joined politics, we looked at, there were a few things that I wanted to achieve when coming from a humble beginning. Football, I wanted to commercialize the entire football industry and bring football to market. I'm happy today we managed to commercialize Nyasa Bullets. It's now functioning as a commercial entity. The second thing I wanted to make sure that our constituency is developing by using the people in the constituency. But just what we need to do as a politician, for me as an MP, is to bridge, to build bridges. Say people are failing to go to driving school, I register a driving school company using the money that God has blessed me with. To enable to empower others. That's what we need to do as politicians, to empower them. This issue of giving free handouts, it's very bad. Why should we give someone something that they can do for themselves? But as a politician, I'm saying, if I empower Malawians, the key issue is corruption was still going on because we are failing to create a middle class in this country. And the reason why we're failing to create a middle class is that once we create a middle class, all of you will not even listen to me as a politician. Because everyone is independent financially. They don't listen. You can achieve anything, you can do anything. That will be the end of corruption. One of the ends of corruption. But my political power will go. So these well-wishers, they will always be there. And most of them are our Indian friends. They actually give money in millions. When I say millions, I mean in millions. But the party, for a party to win, for a party to survive, we have these rallies. When people attend rallies, we have to pay them money, and they face their supporters. This is the issue where I'm saying, if you're a new supporter, why don't you finance the party so that we stop this corruption issue, we stop this well-wisher issue, so that we don't have these people that are expecting a lot. Because if there's no reason why, as if I'm a business person of Indian origin, I finance a part $150 million, which is $200,000, just for nothing. Why am I financing? And there's double dealing. They go to DBB, they give them 200,000. They go to MCB, they also give 200,000. So they basically, they're basically putting one leg on one side, one leg on. They're basically hedging. They are spreading the risk. They're hedging. They're spreading the risk. Whichever government is in power, we must continue with our contract.
Thank you very much, Mr. Noah. Okay, I want now to solicit views, comments, questions, or any seeking of clarification on the points that have been raised before we come for a final round from our audience to conclude. Anyone having questions?
Very interesting topic. I can see one huge problem that we have here. We have one politician, and we're talking about politicians. So we want to change anything. Nothing will change. Will remain the same. So this is a catch-22 situation, a very big conundrum for the people sitting here, because they're engaging with themselves, they're not engaging with the influencer. We have to engage with the influencer, and then we probably can find a hint of some solutions. Now, my comment and my advice to the people in here is the advice I received myself some 25 years ago when I was appointed to one of the past institutions as head of finance. The day of appointment, late Honorable Edward Wanali, I don't know if most of you know Edward Wanali. He was a minister during the Mruzi's time. He invited me for a wine. And he said to me, in this position, you work a lot with politicians. They will give you advice, what Dr. Feston Kaupa said. You can't see it, but you can feel it. If you accept the instruction and you do it, you're a good boy. So every politician will look at you and say, good boy, very nice, we'll be with you. If you don't take the instruction, you're a bad boy. Simple word. So you have problems there. However, like for the Ligawana, the choices you made to help the politician, you're on your own. I will see that. Now, I will not give you an advice whether to say yes or to say no, but I'll ask you to make your decisions very carefully. So that's the same advice I would like to extend to the people in here. Make your choices very, very carefully. I spent 20 months without an income, not even one single tambala in my pocket, when I said no to the president, Bimbo Ntale. Some of people know the story. Even my own tobacco from my farm, ferried by my own lorry, couldn't get into the auction floors. Creepy Jamnayo Nana Honorable Voa Kandawili. Kutibomba lima finya, likakufinya lima finya. Linani finya. Lima Ruma.
Quickly, why up, sir?
But make your right decisions, because you'll be on your own. Nobody will be with you. Make the correct decisions and the right decisions that you can stand by them 20 years to come. Thank you.
Maybe just introduce yourself. I think you forgot to do that at the beginning.
My name is Brian Kamanga.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think that is just a comment and of course an advice which is going to the general public here. There's another hand there, please.
My name is Sotini Shaw. I just wanted to either to ask or to get more clarification. We are glad that we have the honorable MB here, but looking at the way how the issue of governance and corruption is in Malawi, it is clear now that Malawi is one of the rotten countries, if I may use this word. And they are the system of corruption itself has gone into the deeper places in such a way that we need a holistic approach to approach it. I don't know where maybe if the honorable members, they can assist us if we have that kind of long-term approach, long-term solutions, so that we should address this from early stage at primary school level up to the time when somebody else is grown up to attain maybe a job and whatever. But when we talk about governance, when you have attained a certain institutional position, you are a director and you're invited to a workshop of governance, it means something is wrong. Finally, someone says, for a country, for you to know that this country, something is wrong, you know what number of acts, the bylaws. In Malawi, you have so many books, so many bylaws, of which none of them are being implemented. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think I'll just ask you to comment, I think right at the end. But I think just to comment on what you're saying something very truthfully. Because even when you look at the matters of corruption and the abuse that has happened, in the cases that we're seeing in the media, people abused mainly two things: procurement and customs and excise. If you see Kania Cement, Galimodos Mangaloa, they abused these two things: customs and excise and procurement. I've mentioned these two things because here we are discussing the issue of procurement. My contract, you go to MENA, you go to ESCOM, you go to everywhere you go, issues of, I don't call it, in fact I don't call it procurement, I call it misprocurement. So these were the two things that were abused, and we are here to brainstorm and at least find solutions for the same. I'll get to the panelists, the final round of your concluding remarks. We are here to discuss dealing with political influence in the award of contracts. I'll start with Dr. Feston Kaupa, your concluding remarks. What is the best way of us dealing with political influence in the award of contracts? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Quickly, I'll take a cue from where Honorable Lipa left. Who are these well-wishers?
Yes.
Of course, I know that it didn't come out clear to say who these well-wishers are. But to the colleagues sitting in this room, these well-wishers are those people that he already mentioned earlier on, that are referred to offices. Utameni odatandizani, chifuwa nda well-wisher, ndamena manitandiza itago izindizi. So those are the well-wishers. And people sitting here, they've met them. As he said, political parties are supposed to find means and ways of financially sustaining themselves. One example is the one that he gave about the membership cards.
Yes.
But he also zeroed into the fact that if you categorize them, those that pay high levels of membership fees will expect something from the public sector in terms of business, because it is an investment. So going further, Mr. Zonzi talked about institutional politics, professional politics. Then I was thinking that perhaps going further, we should be talking about personal politics. The personal politics that I want to refer to is what now goes on within you to enable you to make a decision, which is also what was touched on yesterday when we were dealing with leadership. So when you're being presented with all these, what bothers you, that's politics, personal politics. And what should enable you to make the right decision, which Mr. Kamanga just referred to. These are the issues of integrity that we always talk about. We are always talking about. Because integrity has been defined as doing something as if the whole world is watching you. Now, as a point of reflection, as professionals, procurement professionals, when we're making those procurement decisions, when we sit and reflect, this decision that I'm making here, what if the whole world was watching me? Would this be the decision that I would make? As such, trying to answer the question that came from Mr. Sotini, to say what would be the long-term solutions? For me, the long-term solutions lies within your personal politics. We have appropriate tools. I was just conferring here with Mr. Rodsons. Do we have adequate laws we were saying, I think as a country we have adequate laws that can safeguard our actions and decisions. But it is the enforcement. And I was quickly reflecting on the MIPS Act. Who commits an offense as a MIPS member? If you go to section 46, you will see the acts of offense that are stipulated in there. But I want to challenge MIPS. How do you say that a member acted unfairly? Because failure to act fairly is an offense. How? So these are some of the things that we need to reflect as a profession and even as an institute. Issues of 10% and gifts. I think we can all admit here that gifts to a large extent are an inducement to sway some professional decisions. Of course, the levels of the gifts differ, but gifts would certainly to some extent sway your decision. So again, how you accept the gifts that are seen to be gifts, you should also be careful and reflect on what impact that gift will have in your decision-making mechanism. Lastly, the interest that we all have in public procurement emanates from the fact that there are huge resources that go into public procurement, and these resources are used to procure services and goods from the public, where the public includes the private sector. Something that has been said before, that we always talk about corruption and everything else has happened in the public sector. But just like you said, it takes a giver and a givee, I don't know whether there is that English, to facilitate corruption. And if we're talking about high levels of corruption in this country, it's because even the private sector itself is equally corrupt.
It's not spared.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to get to Mr. Lotitons as we conclude. I will allow you to make your concluding remarks by bringing into perspective one thing. He has talked about the issue of Malawi not being deficient or not having a shortage in terms of laws to protect or guide us in terms of how we conduct our business in matters of procurement. When a law enforcement agency like the Malawi Police and the Home Ministry of Home Affairs, Homeland Security this time around, has a department, immigration, which misprocures things. I want to bring into perspective issues of uniform, 150, 80,000. Mbale, 15, underwear, 15,000. The other thing, Mbale, all those things, when all those things are happening within an institution under Homeland Security Ministry, where perhaps we expected people to be the first to enforce what is correct, what do you say in your concluding remarks, Mr. Tonzi? I'll give you a minute and a half. We are not being favored by time.
What I am saying is, at the end of the day, it breaks down to the issue of personal integrity. The issue of integrity. Wearing a police uniform does not all of a sudden miraculously make you a person with integrity. It boils down to who you are. And because of that, you will find that we have major challenges of integrity in this country. I get into the bank, I am on a queue. All right? There are 15 people ahead of me. All of a sudden, somebody taps me. I look around, he's a bank employee. He says, why is he removing me from the queue? I am not the first to arrive at on the queue. Why is he removing me from it? Why should I, as a customer of that bank, Why should I be given preferential treatment because I was inspected here against this other person who arrived earlier than me? Now, if you go to Zimbabwe, minibuses queue, people queue for minibuses. They will enter the first minibus until it is full. We are going to be people of integrity and fully democratized. I'm not saying Zimbabwe is democratized. If we will begin to respect the queue. All this corruption is because we don't want to stand in a line. My final remarks, yes. We talk about the rule of law.
Yes.
In other words, the law should be the ruler of all behavior. Those of you who have been on social media this morning or every day, you get amazed at how the Tonse Alliance members are putting pressure on their government to make decisions that are contrary to the rule of law. Right now, the leaders of that alliance are under pressure from their membership not to follow the rule of law to make decisions about certain people and about certain organizations. And we are accepting it. So those are the Malawian challenges. Can we do what needs to be done by following the rule of law and rule of law only? Then we are not going to be corrupt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hopkins. Finally, I want to get to Mr. Edward Jeke. As you make your concluding remarks, I'll give you 2 minutes. I want to ask you one question. It's a suggestion. Have you ever thought of, within the industry of procurement, to bring in technology to deal with matters of abuse and misuse, where you develop perhaps protocols or applications that can manage procurement processes so that procurement contracts can be done at arm's length by removing a human being within the equation? I don't know. As you conclude, please tackle this question or this suggestion in your concluding remarks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Let me first of all address that one. That it is not possible to completely remove the human being in a procurement transaction. The reason being the decision at the very end will have to be implemented. And this issue of influence takes place at every level of the procurement process. You can get the right person, but as he implements the contract, influence will still come there. Either remove him or condemn whatever who he's doing, so that somebody should still come in. So, yeah, it is possible. We have e-procurement where the tenders are received by way of, a computerized system. The evaluations, award, they are done right within that framework. But still, the question of political influence comes. It doesn't look at the laws that are at play. It will still come. And that takes me to an area of interest that I had. Because in all this discussion, I think we have not discussed the plight of the procurement officer sitting in that office facing the political pressure. This is the cancer that is already on our body. How do we handle it? Okay? The politician out there knows there are rules to be followed. But irrespective of that knowledge, he comes in and says, Mr. JK, can you make sure that this tender is awarded to X? He knows the rules are there. And sometimes if it does not speak to you, he will speak to you through your boss. And the boss is somebody who takes the instruction book from the minister, kneeling on the ground. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. No. Our procurement man is capable. He will do that. You see? Now, he tells you, Mr. Cheke, this is the one you are going to award the tender to. Well, if it is a tender with several lots, you also receive a list of people that should actually be considered. But the minister, there's a problem there. The minister gives him a list of 5 people. So delivering to you, it will be a bloated list of 10 people. He has included his own. Now, how does now this procurement person handle this kind of pressure? We are saying, as procurement people, are we capable of sealing the minister's mouth, the politician's mouth, that he should not issue that instruction? Are we capable of stopping them from making their demands? The answer is no. But can you stand in front of that honorable minister, honorable what, or your boss, and say, no, sir, we have rules to follow? You will not attend this conference next year because you'll be removed. But in conclusion, all I'm saying here is our procurement people sitting in those offices must be supported. They must know how to handle that kind of pressure by, observing all the rules of, politeness, accepting what the minister is saying, but sit down and say, but sir, we are supposed to handle it this way and this way and this way. The politician usually fears rules, so he will sometimes listen. But if he doesn't, I think it's important that our institutions, MIPS, PPTA, and all those that are responsible should assist in making sure that our politicians are aware that rules must be followed, because procurement decisions must be awarded fairly, and fairness entails that the politicians must be fair themselves.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cheke. I'll get to Mr. Lipipa to finish our session. Mr. Lipipa, from the political point of view, how do you conclude matters of influencing contract awarding by politicians? Quickly, in a minute.
I think to completely remove the influence is not going to be possible, because elsewhere in the world there is a slight political influence, but I think on a continuum we have to make sure that it is acceptable influence, because now we have gone to the that's an issue of integrity now and values, because then you know that what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. For example, in Germany, there is a policy that you cannot make more than 12%. So as a government, they know, they do their costing. So if you're buying, say, pens, for example, they will know a pen is 100 baht. That's a cost to get a pen. So you cannot sell it more than 110 baht. So you float it, you let anyone who wants to take the business. That's one way of dealing with political influence. So there will be no one who will come back and it will mark that to that again. And when you called me here, looking at you, I feel sorry for you with the pressure that we give you. Some of these guys, I'm telling you, some of these people here, you see, when I'm close to the president would tell me, okay, go and see Feston Kaopa. So then, if I go alone, I will know Feston will say, I don't know, done. So I will ask the president, call him first. So the president will just call, Kaopa, I'm sending my son, Lipipa, he's coming there. That is it. When I go there, I become more powerful than Feston himself. Business he did. And before he even responds, I lie as if I'm on a phone. We must change this guy. Do you know the finish? We are laughing, but do you know that? That's why he said, and by the end of the day, when you give me a contract, if we go to court, it will be him say, why did you award him a contract? And then all these verbal words will not be there. So, yes, we need to deal, and I think what Bright Kamanga observed there is very important. I believe this is just the first step in engaging politicians, because you can't only call one politician here. This is a very, very serious issue. We put you under unnecessary pressure, but it has to be. And on the other side is the Asian community giving you procurement guys the pressure. No, we sponsor those guys. Me and the president have, in fact, other procurement officers here have been threatened by them to say, I can get the president to remove you, even tomorrow. So this, I think, should just be the start of our engagement, politicians and the procurement guys. But I actually feel sorry for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Noel. Before they leave the stage, let me once again thank my panelists for taking their time to help us digress and digest this particular topic, dealing with political influence in the world of contracts. It was not an easy territory to delve in. We had to take our time and make sure that at least we bring to you something which is useful and impactful when you dispense to your various offices. I should start by thanking Mr. Loti Tonzi, Dr. Feston Kauba, Honorable Noel Libiba, and Mr. Edward Jeke for taking your time to come to us. You can give them a round of applause for that. Thank you very much for patience. And as I leave, I just want to encourage anyone and everyone here to say, we need to love our country, we need to do what is right. I'll leave by giving you a quote which was made by Dr. Arnold Ekpe. He said, and I quote, "No country has ever developed through foreign direct investment. You first start at home and foreigners come to help you." End of quote. My name is Jawis Banda. Thank you very much for taking time to listen to this.
Thank you very much, Chawezi, for moderating that very hot and very pertinent debate that is affecting our members in the procurement sector. People will be people, people are corrupt, people influence, people give, people will always influence people. People, 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 people will always be people. Quoting from King Malewe's poem,